I'm Michael Fox, and this is the Prospector Podcast, and we are on location at the mining investment event in Quebec City. I'm sitting across right now from the dream team of Exploits Discovery. I've got Jeff Swinoga, the president and CEO of the company, and Ken Tylee, who is the vice president of exploration. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hey, how are you doing?
Great. Well, thanks, Michael. It's great to be on the show.
Yeah, it's good to have you guys back. And the company's been going through some growing and some interesting times. But before we get into that, let's talk first, Jeff. Let's give an overview of what Exploits Discovery is about.
Great. Well, thanks, Michael. And honestly, we've been working so hard on creating this growth platform for the benefit of our shareholders. I mean, you have gold prices reaching up around $3,200 an ounce, 4,500 Canadian. And what we've done here is literally in the last 3 weeks, we've announced 2 option deals, one in Ontario and one in Quebec. The one in Ontario we announced first. It's the Hawkins project. It's 60 kilometers district scale. It's got a resource on it already, historical resource of 328,000 ounces of gold near surface, all within about 200 meters. So we're super pleased about that. It's almost like a Hemlo style geologic structure. And then we announced literally just yesterday 3 properties in Quebec. Fenton, Wilson, and Benoit. And combined, they've got about 340,000 ounces. Some is historic, and about 100,000 is non-compliant. But honestly, 2 great opportunities for our shareholders to get exposure to 680,000 ounces of gold in world-class jurisdictions. And we still have our Newfoundland property in near Newfound Gold. So a tremendous opportunity for us and our shareholders to benefit from this growth platform.
Yeah, it's the last month has been very busy, and all of a sudden the ounces in the ground popped up really quickly. Our listeners and readers might be familiar with the Quebec Properties, in that former client Cartier Minerals the Resources had those properties that you bought from them. So, from this end of the table, I'm very familiar with those properties, and quite frankly, you got yourself some gems in Quebec. A little less familiar with the Ontario property, but that's why we have Ken here with us.
Yeah.
He's the geologist. I'm not. I'm just the podcast host, and I know enough about geology to be dangerous, as everybody knows. So, Ken, tell us about the geology of the Ontario, then the Quebec projects, and what makes them attractive.
We've been looking around since probably midway through 2024. We've been looking at numerous opportunities throughout kind of Eastern Canada over towards Manitoba. And the Hawkins property sort of came to our attention with a company called Pavey Ark. They originally had sort of acquired the use of these claims that were originally staked about 140 kilometers away from the big Hemlo discovery. They were staked back in the mid-'80s by the guy, one of the co-stakers of the Hemlo discovery, a guy named Don McKinnon. And he staked these claims back then because he thought there was a lot of lookalikes, a lot of indications that were very similar to what he'd seen at Hemlo, which led to the big discoveries there. So the property has had sort of intermittent exploration go on since the 80s, since that time. And we were very fortunate to sign the definitive agreement with a fellow named Richard Sutcliffe from Pavey Ark. And now we have a 5-year option, just like a lease, to explore on the Hawkins property. We have really great, what I consider sort of low-scale payments to do, and not a huge or onerous work commitment to do every year. We're essentially given the opportunity to get in there and really make a quick assessment of what Hawkins could bring to exploits down the road. So they have, as Jeff said, they have sort of a central resource, historic resource, and we want to get into that area. We want to check to make sure that everything is valid. There are some interesting higher grade sort of core central assays. This was looked at back in 2020, more for like an open pit scenario. That was very popular at the time when gold was around 1,700. Now we want to look at it with gold's advanced prices, and we see some of these higher grade values. We want to get in and look at it from an underground point of view. Can we get those overall grades up from 1.7 grams? Can we get it up to 3 or 4 or 5 grams? getting into the realm of possibility for an underground operation. So what we're going to do is hopefully we can get some money raised. We're going to get in and drill 20, 25 holes into these key areas where the old historic higher grade values are. We can see, do they have any continuity? Do they extend to depth? Are there perpendicular, what we call conjugate trends? And if we can use some of these, we can build up like a template, a cookie cutter, let's say, on a couple of these trends and say, okay, this little lozenge of higher grade values represents the opportunity for, let's say, 100,000 ounces. Where else on that 60-kilometer property, where else can we find similar templates with values in it and sort of give us some focus? It's a way of sort of going from known to unknown. We don't want to take big jump outs. We want to sort of follow baby steps. There are some showings off to the east that don't have a single drill hole in them. So what we're going to do is, like I said, establish a base case at the McKinnon Resources and then slowly start moving eastwards and testing some of these other opportunities. Hopefully we can build up an impetus and end up getting up towards 1 million ounces of inventory.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I just want to add to Ken saying, like honestly, the goal here is to get to 1 million ounces at Hawkins. This property came with about $10 million of work over the last 5 years and $2.4 million of assessment credits. So this is a district scale, as Ken was talking about, district scale opportunity where we don't have to worry about keeping these claims over a number of years because of these assessment credits. We can go right after, getting the permits and go right into a drill program. That's the plan for the fall of this year. Yeah. So Ken and his team has identified 6 opportunities at depth and also to the east, as he mentioned. So we can build on the current resource of 328,000 ounces to, as he said, like 100,000 ounces here, 200,000 ounces there, on our goal to building 1 million ounces at least, and then also maybe a long strike to the east and to the rest of the property.
Yep. Wonderful. Yep. And tell us about the Quebec Properties.
So this acquisition just occurred really within the last 48 hours. We're so lucky. We've been able to partner with a fellow named Philippe from Cartier Resources. And Philippe has been very, very busy in the last few months with his sort of keystone property called Chimo down close to the town of Val-d'Or in northern Quebec, where he's brought in some partners like Agnico. So he admittedly doesn't have the time, doesn't have the focus right now to look at some of these northern greenstone belts further to the north, up near Matagami and Chibougamau. So he has allowed us to enter into an option agreement where we're going to spend roughly over a period of 5 years, we can spend approximately $1 million in expenditures every year. And the good thing about this, it doesn't have to be all on one property. There's variability within the agreement that if we find something, let's say on the Wilson property that we really like, we can focus a few years worth of effort and dollars on Wilson, and Benoit and Fenton, the other properties. They can sort of sit off on the sidelines. We don't have to advance them all equally. We're very fortunate, again, that there is a significant assessment credits from all the work that Philippe's guys have been doing over the years. So we don't have to worry about covering the assessment bases on the other properties. So the 3 properties are sort of anchored by the central Benoit property. There is a compliant resource that was estimated about 5 years ago on that, in considering inferreds and indicated ounces. So again, just like Hawkins, we want to get in there, lay out about 20 holes or so on Benoit, on the resources, and start looking at it. Are there opportunities to get that grade up from 2.7 grams per ton, get it up again into the 4, 5s, and 6s where we can look at it from an underground point of view? Do things hold together at depth? It's open in all directions. There's lots of opportunity to expand. And again, as Jeff said, we're aiming for 1 million ounces in Quebec as well. So we'll take a shot at Benoit. We have this very good looking property not far away called Wilson. It's been drilled a fair bit in the past. There's some non-compliant, non-current resources that were estimated on that 15 or 20 years ago. We want to go back into that central area. There's some really nice high grade values in there. Things like 11 grams over 3 meters in some of the zones in the Tucson zone. So they definitely need follow-up. There's a 20 grammer on the eastern end of Tucson, 20 grams over 2 meters. There's definitely follow-up work, follow-up drilling that should be done there. So for our 3 new acquisitions, we're sort of going in with a prioritization viewpoint. We're going to get to know them much better. Like I said, we've only really been dabbling into it over the past few weeks. We're going to prioritize where we want to spend our money, where we want to focus our next 6 weeks of work. We're going to renew the permit requirements for those properties, and hopefully before October, November, we'll have a drill rig on those properties as well.
Wonderful. Jeff.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, Ken, that's a great summary of each. I actually, we've got beautiful looking core right in front of us here, Michael. I'm just kind of wondering if Ken can actually pick up a few pieces and kind of tell the listeners what he's seeing.
Well, the big thing about our properties in Quebec are that, and we're so fortunate this core was brought to us with Philippe down from Val d'Or. The big difference about this core is from the typical the main breaks that you see in Val d'Or, Kirkland Lake, and Timmins. These are sulfide associated. You look at the piece of core, and the first thing that really jumps out is the very strong banded fabric. And that's through the orogenic process, through lots of metamorphism and structural deformation. And you have these bands of pyrite and pale gray silica, like a flood, a wash of silica going through there. And this is what carries the late stage gold, is the gold is tied up or encapsulated within the pyrite and the fine silica bands next to the pyrite. They're not like a typical lode gold deposit like you would see in Timmins, where I live, where you have, let's say, 3 and 4 foot wide white quartz veins with nuggets of gold. Here, we believe the gold is much more evenly distributed. It's much more, let's say, if you want to, predictable or let's say manageable when it comes to asset.
Wonderful. This company, it's made its bread and butter in Newfoundland.
Yeah.
You still have the property in Newfoundland.
Yep.
What's going to happen in Newfoundland now?
Yeah, so great question, Michael, because and actually a number of listeners have been or investors have been asking too. So what we're doing here is we literally a month ago we didn't have a gold resource. You know, we found 2 great gold zones on our bullseye property in Newfoundland. One's called Horseshoe, one called Saddle. But what we created for investors here is a growth platform of almost 700,000 ounces in varying degrees of historic resources. Now, Newfoundland has always been like the bread and butter of where we actually were. And but it's going to compete with the opportunities that we have in Ontario and Quebec. So if there's an opportunity to create a million ounces in Ontario and a million ounces in Quebec, having 2 drill programs in the fall of this year, I mean, we will continue to look at Newfoundland, what opportunities we have there. Newfoundland's doing a great job. They've came out with 2 million ounces in a resource, and they're also coming with a PEA. So as things continue to heat up in that area, we'll continue to reassess how much money we put into those type of claims.
And just to reiterate your relationship between Newfound Gold and yourselves, you guys are along the same strike, but they surround you on opposite ends.
Yeah. So, for example, it looks like the feather, like the Alpine fault going through. Newfound Gold, of course, had 22 gold zones, 2 million ounces in resource. They came up and a PEA coming up. But to your point, Michael, 5 kilometers up, you see our bullseye property right along strike, right along this Alpine fault. And then further up, we've got the larger gazebo property, which is about 7 kilometers. So, and they've had good success at the drop kick discovery, and they're continuing to drill.
Down there in January and February, we were drilling our phase 4 on bullseye, and sometimes it was hard to hear yourself speak, because when you're talking to our drillers and the Newfound drills are just in the order of like a half a kilometer away, just on the other side of their claim line. So it's kind of everywhere you look, you can see a shiv wheel from a drill, which is a great thing really to have. We have lots of good friendly neighbors down there.
Yeah, well, you can look at each other over the fence for quite a while there.
That's right, exactly.
So, the drill program, the exploration program on the new properties, as we go forward, is it funded, or are we looking at a funding round?
Yeah, well, let me mention a couple of things too. One is currently our market cap's around $8 or $9 million. We've got about $4 million in cash. So from a valuation perspective, our EV per ounce with the new ounces, so we've got these option agreements, we're around $6 an ounce. So very attractive compared to a potential peer group that we have, where they're around 40 to 50. So there's a potential re-rating of our company based on those type of metrics. But in terms of funding, we've got, as I mentioned, about $4 million. And then also we're going to be talking more about our program, how we leverage into it. So we've got opportunity to fund it with our current resources, but we also look for opportunities to shed non-core claims that we might have and monetize those. So we're looking forward to talking more about this program in the future.
Wonderful. As this all rolls out and the company starts to move forward with the new plan, how will they continue to follow the plan?
Yeah, so stay tuned because, first job number one, create a growth platform for investors, in which we've done. So check the box on that. Second, we're coming out with talking about the permits, when they're going to be issued and so forth. We're going to be doing webinars, teach-ins on what we see the benefits of Hawkins as well as the Quebec Properties and why we see the potential to grow these each to 1 million ounces. And then stay tuned for more details on the exploration plan. So as we've done a lot of due diligence. Honestly, Michael, this has been a lot of work over the last month. But stay tuned as we kind of roll out those details. And as we learn more, we might shift a bit in terms of where the first drill hole goes. But honestly, it's exciting days for us. Really exciting.
Well, it's like having a new toy at Christmas time.
And I got to tell you, we've had during the course of this last few days, we've talked to 3 different sort of agencies, I guess you would say, that are affiliated with the Quebec government, and they've been totally open for business. They've been enabling and willing to help us out, to guide us along. It's been really, really refreshing that these experts are so willing to help us out.
Yeah, the Quebec government is very, very mining friendly, and
Incredibly.
you're in a good jurisdiction as you are in Ontario as well. So you're going to be pleased as work starts rolling out and these projects start to move forward. So look forward to talking results when they start coming out. It'll be fun times for the company. So thank you both for joining me today.
Yeah, quite looking forward to it.
Yeah, thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Exploits Discovery is a paid sponsor of the Prospector News. The host owns shares and warrants in Exploits Discovery, bought at the market for investment purposes. The Prospector News podcast is for educational purposes only. The opinions expressed are those of the participants and are not to be taken as investment advice. Listeners need to do their own due diligence and seek advice of a licensed investment advisor.